Hi everyone, I'm excited to introduce my summer fellow Abigail Ahern, who comes to Concord recently completing her master's in architecture from Wentworth Institute of Technology in Boston. We have been so lucky to have Abigail work with us in Concord this summer because she not only brings the technical skills in architecture and design, but also a passion for sustainability and historic preservation. I don't know if you all have heard, but she's actually done historic masonry, which is just really cool. So this is a photo of Abigail at the Louisa May Alcott Orchard House in Concord, home of Little Women, and really an excellent example of a historic building that's integrated sustainability through ground source heat pumps and other initiatives, in one of the many buildings that Abigail looked at this summer remotely. So we have learned so much from her in a short summer, and I'm really excited for you to hear all about her work. Over to you, Abigail.
Abigail, you're muted. Thanks for the introduction, Kate. Hi everyone, my name is Abigail, and this summer I worked with the town of Concord, Mass. To create a sustainability guide for historic and older homes. There's a common misconception that sustainability and preservation of buildings just don't go, which is really not the case. And this guide is a way to bridge that knowledge gap and really show that sustainable retrofits are possible in historic homes. So the main goal this summer was to provide a resource to homeowners interested in retrofitting their historic homes so that we can start addressing our existing housing stock. And this is important in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, since 32% of emissions come from residential buildings. And so this map represents where homeowners are taking advantage of sustainable rebates throughout the town of Concord. And it basically shows that the majority of these rebates are not happening within the historic districts. And so I wanted my work to really show that these sustainable initiatives are possible within the historic districts of Concord. So by learning the barriers and best practices of sustainable retrofits, I was able to create the graphic on the right, which represents some of the key strategies that are possible to implement within historic homes. And these strategies that I also address throughout the sustainability guide. Next slide, please. So the focus when creating this guide was to make it understandable and accessible for the user. So the chapters within the book really focus on addressing the most common barriers when retrofitting historic homes and what the best practices and process really is. So it starts with an introduction that really speaks to why this is important, that we address our existing housing stock, before jumping into what the step-by-step process is in planning a sustainability retrofit. And it also gives examples of strategies to use that will be most effective. So the guide will be accessible on the Concord website, so homeowners can download the PDF and use it how they see fit. And although this guide was made specifically for Concord, a lot of the information provided is still applicable to other New England towns and cities. So it's important that it's public, so towns that may not have the resources to create their own guide still have access to this information. And throughout the summer, I also presented this project to both the Historic District Commission and the Climate Action Advisory Board for the town of Concord. And both groups were really interested and helpful throughout the process. And it was a good opportunity to get the word out that this guide is going to be available by the end of the summer. Next slide, please. So throughout this project, it was super interesting to me to really learn about the body of research in sustainable retrofits. But I think much remains to be done in order to debunk the idea that preservation and sustainability are not compatible. So some of the next steps I believe to be crucial to consider is to start creating new partnerships and collaboration between historic preservation groups, policymakers, and green designers and builders, so that professionals are aware that these historic sustainable retrofits are possible and can be effective solutions, as well as the expansion of education efforts that present preservation technology as sustainability techniques. And of course, more research so that decisions to repair and maintain rather than replace are based on both hard data and also the historic character of structures. So that's all I have, but I'd like to thank my mentors, Kate, Marcia, and Heather, for all their support, encouragement, and knowledge they shared throughout this unique yet valuable fellowship. Thank you.